Happy Independence Day, everyone. So, about 7 decades ago, in the year 1947, on August 15th, our great nation got its independence from the British rule. This morning, as I was standing in the flag hoisting, as our tricolor flag was flying high, I had this pride in my heart out of my patriotism for our great nation. I was saluting the flag, and I had so many things running in my head, thinking we have achieved so much of political freedom. Ours is the largest democratic nation in the world. We have our own constitution. We have freedom of speech. We have the right to believe what we want to believe. So many things. But along the same line, I had a question in my mind. And that was in the past 70 odd years, with all the freedom that we have achieved, as has our country achieved its true potential? Has it become all that it could have possibly become? And after a little bit of deliberation, I must admit my answer was no. There is so much that we could have achieved, but we have not. And what is the reason? It got me thinking. So here is a statement from Lord Macaulay. He gave this as a part of his speech in the British Parliament in the year 1835. And it goes like this. I'll quote it exactly how he said it. I have travelled across the length and breadth of India, and I have not seen one person who is a beggar, who is a thief. Such wealth I have seen in this country, such high moral values, people of such caliber that I do not think we would ever conquer this country unless we break the very backbone of this nation, which is her spiritual and cultural heritage, and therefore I propose that we replace her old and ancient education system, her culture. For if the Indians think that all that is foreign and English is good and greater than their own, they will lose their self esteem, their native self culture, and they will become what we want them, a truly dominated nation. This is the most often quoted part of his speech, but actually he goes on to say a few other things. Let me read that to you as well. He says, we must at present do our best to form a class who may be interpreters between us and the millions whom we govern, a class of persons Indian in blood and color, but English in taste, in opinions, in morals, and in intellect. That last sentence really got to me, where he says we must create a class of people who are Indian in blood and color, but English in taste, in opinions, in morals, and in intellect. So, in my humble opinion, I think although we've gotten political freedom, we are still having this intellectual slavery. We see that all the time. We are constantly needing validation from the West, blindly imitating the Western culture. Anything that's coming from foreign, we say, oh yeah, that's great. Anything that is coming from our own backyard in our country, no, it's not that great. So this inferiority complex is deep rooted. And they have done it in a very systematic way. And I think for this, the primary cause is perhaps the education system, the current education system. And even in the current education system, especially the history part. Because in today's history lessons, I mean, I studied it, perhaps you have studied it, what did we read? It was mostly about people coming and invading our country. They didn't really talk about the true glory of our great nation. So how can we expect our students to come out of this kind of a education system, studying this kind of history textbooks, which is falsified history? It is basically fiction actually, which is called history today. They took their history written by Europeans, perhaps many of them did not even come to India, they didn't live in India, they have not experienced India. And we are reading our history written by them, some Europeans. This is a very systematic attack in breaking our culture, taking away our pride, our self esteem. So then going on, if we actually understand the true history of India, the patriotism, the kind of patriotism we will have is unbelievable. So let us study a little bit, not necessarily study, let me shine a little bit of glimpse on the true glory of India. Let's take about the economy part of it. In 1 CE, our economic contribution, the GDP of India was 32%. 32. And then until about 1700 AD also, it was still 24%. So 32 to 24%, there's a slight dip there, but not as much. So these 1700 years, India was the unacknowledged superpower of the world. And then after the 1700, when the British invasion happened, there was a steep dip in our economic contribution. By 1901, our economy had gone down to 1%. 1% GDP from 32%. For that matter, in 1901, just in 1 year, about 1 billion British pounds worth of money was siphoned out of our nation. This is what was done to us. And not just the economy, even textile industry, 25% of world's textile industry was from here. Take it jewelry and precious stones, 9 out of 10 cut diamonds was from here. Science and technology, Albert Einstein, Voltaire, they have sung the glories of our nation and said that they are grateful for the thinkers and philosophers from the banks of Ganges. Mathematics, when we say law of gravity, all of us think, oh, that was Newton who discovered it. But do we know? Do we know that 400 years before Newton discovered law of gravity, Bhaskaracharya had already discovered it? Same thing with the Pythagoras theorem. Pythagoras put his name saying that I found this theorem, the a square plus b square equal to c square. But do we know that our own Bhaudayana in his Sulabha Sutras has actually already defined what is this Pythagoras theorem much earlier? And Sripad Madhvacharya, one of the greatest philosophers, he has not only talked about philosophy, but he has also written about Taylor series, new series, Leibniz series, new Leibniz series, much before it was actually called these things. And then moving on in astronomy, as far as 1000 BC in Surya Siddhanta, the distance between the sun to the moon is given 253,000 miles. And the scientific figure that we have now is very, very close to that. Same thing with the diameter of the earth at 7,840 miles. And then again, it was Bhaskaracharya, the great astronomer, who said the earth orbits around the sun in 365.2587 days. Can it get any more precise than that? And shipping and navigation also, as far back as 1805 in the Battle of Trafalgar, where Nelson defeated Napoleon, the ship that was used in that battle was made in Mumbai. And then moving on to the medical science, Charaka, Sushruta, and Sushruta was one of the very first plastic surgeons the world has ever known, much before even the term called plastic surgery was invented. And military science, martial arts, languages, and education itself. I mean, how dare we call Macaulay as the father of modern education in India? Really? As far as 5th century BC, there was Takshashila Vishwavidyalaya in our great nation. And then there was the Nalanda University. And in Nalanda University itself, there were 10,000 students under the care of 500 able tutors. And they had 3 humongous libraries. 3 filled with so many diverse and varied amount of literature. In fact, when they set fire to it, it took 3 months to just burn down the libraries. That's the kind of wealth our nation had. And it's not just about prosperity and diversity, also about peace. In a country where most of the marriages are arranged marriages, divorce was unheard of even as early as 1900s. In fact, when the very first divorce happened in our nation, it was carried by a newspaper. But what's happening to our nation now? This blind aping of the West. And that is primarily because we don't know our own wealth, our own culture, our own glory that our great nation has. So it's high time that we really learn about all these things and have pride. Be proud about our own culture and various other things. And what is that one thread that is holding the fabric of our entire nation? It's a solid foundation of spirituality. Solid foundation of spirituality. That is why our nation, actually, it is not India. India was given by the Britishers. It's not even Hindustan. Hindustan was Hindustan when Persians invaded us. They camped at the other side of the river Sindhu, and in Persian they couldn't pronounce the S properly, and they said instead of Sindhu, Hindu, and anybody who lived on the other side of the Sindhu river became Hindustan. So we are not Indians, we are not Hindustanis, we are Bharatiyas. Bharata. Bha comes from the word Bhaskara. Bhaskara means sun, so light. Light of what? Light of knowledge. What knowledge? Spiritual knowledge. So Bha, spiritual knowledge. Adhyatmika Vidya. Rata means to be immersed, to relish, to be absorbed in something. So Bharata is a nation in whose land the citizens are absorbed in the study and practice of spiritual knowledge. That is Bharata, Bharatiya. So in fact, it reminds me when my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, at a very advanced age, when he landed in the airport of London, a journalist came and put a mic across his face and said, "So why have you come to London?" And Srila Prabhupada, without missing a beat, he said, "You Britishers, you came to our nation and looted so many things for many years. But you have forgotten to loot the most valuable thing, the spiritual knowledge, and I have come to give you that for free." And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, an incarnation of Krishna about 500 years ago, he said, "Bharata bhumite janma haila janma sartaka kari kara para upakara." What does it mean? Bharata bhumite janma haila. In this holy land of Bharata, anybody who takes janma, birth, he or she has two primary duties to perform. Number one, Janma Sarthaka Kari. We should fulfill our own life's mission. And how do we do that? By gaining spiritual knowledge and practicing spiritual knowledge. And we are not selfish, we don't do it just for our sake. Then Kara Para Upakara. Give it out to others, share it with others. Both for ourselves and then sharing it with others as well. In fact, our Honorable Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi, when he visited Shinzo Abe, the Prime Minister of Japan, the gift that he gave him was a copy of Bhagavad Gita. He gave Bhagavad Gita to him and said, "This is the most valuable gift that I can give you. There is nothing more valuable than this that you will need." So this is our culture, to gain spiritual knowledge and to give spiritual knowledge. In fact, if we just see around the world, every nation has its USP, something that's, they are good at. Like America, United States of America, theirs is the military strength. Japan, quality of products. Germany, they are known for their auto design. China, for their manufacturing. Like that, you can go on and on about so many countries. So what is the USP of Bharata? What is that most valuable asset that belongs to us? It is our rich and deep spiritual knowledge. This is our asset. This is what belongs to us truly. So we should know it and then we should share it. So perhaps that is why the Supreme Lord, in creating our nation, He's kept the high peak Himalayas in the north and the deep Indian Ocean in the south, as though to instruct us that we should grow as high as the Himalayas in our spiritual knowledge and go as deep as the Indian Ocean in our love, spreading the spiritual knowledge and making it truly Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. So this is my short message to you on this celebratory day. I know it's a big day for all of us, Bharatiyas. So on this day, let's take a pledge that we will claim this true asset of ours, the spiritual knowledge, and then we will do our best in sharing it with as many people as possible. Thank you very much. Happy Independence Day again.